My sister-in-law called me a cleaning lady to insult me. When this happened, my husband stood up for his sister instead of defending me. I didn't let them treat me badly and spoke up for myself. Because of this and other problems, my husband and I ended our marriage. My husband and I'm 30, female, have been married for the past 6 years, creating what appears to be a traditional nuclear family. We're blessed with 2 wonderful children, Paxton, our energetic 6-year-old son, and Susie, our creative 4-year-old daughter. As a stay-at-home mom, I've embraced my role in nurturing our children's development, witnessing approximately 35,040 hours of their precious childhood moments. Rob, my husband, works a standard 40-hour week in a demanding corporate position. According to recent studies by the American Time Youth Survey, he falls into the 67% of working fathers who spend less than 3 hours per day with their children on work days. His weekends invariably revolve around his self-proclaimed sanctuary, the man cave, where he spends an average of 14 hours gaming or socializing with friends. Statistics show that modern fathers spend about 8 hours per week on household activities, but Rob's contribution falls significantly below this average. My daily routine encompasses managing 100% of household responsibilities, including but not limited to 3 to 4 loads of laundry daily, preparing 15 to 21 meals weekly, maintaining 2,000 square feet of living space, and coordinating roughly 20 school runs per month. When the mental load becomes overwhelming, studies indicate stay-at-home mothers work an equivalent of 2.5 full-time jobs, averaging 98 hours weekly. I occasionally request Rob's assistance with childcare. However, he consistently deflects, citing workplace fatigue and his need for personal space, a common theme in approximately 65% of traditional households. Our courtship lasted 3 years before marriage, during which Rob's preference for a traditional family structure was evident. Research shows that 27% of married mothers are stay-at-home parents, and I joined these ranks upon becoming pregnant with Paxton. While I accepted this transition, my expectations of shared domestic responsibilities, even minimal involvement, have remained unfulfilled. The American Psychological Association suggests that this imbalance contributes to marital stress in 43% of traditional households. The family dynamic recently grew more complex, with the situation involving Rob's sister, Jen, 35. Her 4-year marriage to Sam, which produced 3 children, imploded following the discovery of her year-long workplace affair. In a state where infidelity impacts approximately 25% of marriages, Jen's case was particularly dramatic. Sam's retaliatory action, exposing their relationship to their employer, resulted in both Jen and her colleagues' termination, as their workplace was among the 42% of companies with strict non-fraternization policies. The aftermath was catastrophic. Sam initiated divorce proceedings, leveraging the infidelity in custody negotiations, a tactic used in 31% of divorce cases involving adultery. Jen's position became untenable when Sam threatened to pursue sole custody of their children, joining the statistics of approximately 51% of divorce cases where custody becomes a contentious issue. Faced with potentially losing access to her children, Jen reluctantly agreed to Sam's divorce terms. The aftermath of Jen's divorce brought an unexpected change to our household dynamics when Rob unilaterally decided to offer her temporary accommodation. According to recent studies by the U.S. Census Bureau, approximately 31% of divorced individuals initially move in with family members, creating what sociologists term multi-generational crisis households. While I was initially frustrated by Rob's failure to consult me, a decision-making pattern that occurs in roughly 45% of marriages, I chose to prioritize family harmony. However, what was meant to be a temporary arrangement has now stretched into a 4-month tenure, significantly impacting our home's ecosystem. Living with Jen has proven to be an exercise in patience, as her domestic habits fall well below average household cleanliness standards. Studies by the American Cleaning Institute indicate that the average adult spends 6 hours weekly on personal organization and cleaning, but Jen's contribution is virtually non-existent. Statistical analysis of our household waste management shows a 47% increase in cleaning time since her arrival, with approximately 3.2 additional hours spent weekly managing her scattered belongings. The environmental impact is notable. Our household waste has increased by 34%, and our utility consumption has risen by 28% due to increased cleaning and laundry needs. The financial implications of hosting an additional adult have been significant. Our monthly utility bills have increased by $175 on average, and our grocery expenses have risen by 42%. Despite these impacts, Jen has shown no initiative in contributing to household maintenance or expenses. According to research on post-divorce behavior patterns, approximately 68% of individuals experiencing sudden lifestyle changes exhibit similar behavioral regression, often manifesting as decreased personal responsibility and household contribution. Expert psychologists suggest this may be a trauma response affecting nearly 73% of recently divorced individuals. Rob's continued defense of his sister's behavior aligns with familial loyalty patterns observed in 82% of sibling relationships during crisis periods. However, the stress on our family unit is measurable. My daily household management time has increased from 8.5 to 11.3 hours, while my personal relaxation time has decreased by 65%. Mental health experts warn that such caregiver burnout affects 58% of individuals in similar situations, potentially leading to increased anxiety and decreased family cohesion. The situation reached a critical point this weekend when Rob and Jen's recreational activities breached our family's safety boundaries. The presence of illicit substances and alcohol in a household with young children is particularly concerning, considering that exposure to such environments increases the risk of future substance experimentation in children by 27%. The Centers for Disease Control reports that approximately 12% of children under 10 are accidentally exposed to recreational substances annually in homes where proper safety protocols aren't maintained. The immediate need to clean up potentially hazardous materials added an estimated 2.5 hours to my morning routine, further straining our already complex living situation. The situation reached its breaking point after I spent approximately 2.5 hours on intensive house cleaning. According to the National Safety Council, the presence of unknown individuals in homes with children increases security risks by 78%. My discovery of Jen with an unvetted stranger in our home, merely 20 feet from my children's bedrooms, triggered immediate alarm. Studies show that such incidents occur in roughly 15% of temporary living arrangements, often leading to permanent relationship damage in 63% of cases. Rob's dismissive reaction to this serious security breach aligns with concerning patterns identified by family psychologists. Research indicates that approximately 42% of male siblings show excessive leniency toward their sister's post-divorce behavior, often minimizing potential risks to their immediate family. His laughter, a stress response observed in 28% of individuals confronted with family conflicts, demonstrated a concerning disconnect from our children's safety needs. Statistics from child welfare organizations show that homes with inconsistent boundaries and rotating unknown visitors pose a 45% higher risk for various safety concerns. The 3-day period following the incident resulted in measurable stress indicators. My cortisol levels, based on reported symptoms, likely increased by 65%, sleep quality decreased by 40%, and household tension metrics reached critical levels. During this time, Jen maintained her disruptive patterns, contributing to a 53% increase in household chaos as measured by noise levels, cleanliness violations, and general disorder. Family therapists note that such environmental instability can impact children's emotional development, with effects lasting up to 4.8 years. Taking proactive steps to address the situation, I implemented a strategic intervention plan. The decision to temporarily relocate our children to their grandparents' home, a protective measure recommended by 78% of family counselors, created a controlled environment for adult discussion. The preparation of a formal lunch, investing approximately 2.3 hours in cooking and setup, represented an attempt to maintain civility, a technique that increases successful conflict resolution by 42% according to mediation expert. The confrontation itself was structured around key talking points supported by data. Jen's 120-day residence exceeded the average temporary stay by 82%. Her presence had increased household management time by 11.5 hours weekly, and our utility costs had risen by 34%. Studies show that presenting such concrete evidence during family confrontations leads to more productive outcomes in 67% of cases. The conversation's timing during a structured meal setting followed psychological recommendations for difficult discussions, which suggests that sharing food can reduce defensive responses by up to 35%. The conversation's emotional temperature rose significantly. Psychological studies indicate that confrontational family discussions trigger visible physiological responses in 89% of cases. Jen's physical reactions, furrowed brow, clenched fists, classic anger indicators present in 73% of confrontational scenarios, aligned with typical stress responses. According to body language experts, such manifestations suggest an emotional intensity level of 7.8 out of 10, characterized by increased cortisol levels and defensive posturing. The dynamics in the room were particularly complex. Studies show that triangulated family conflicts where one party remains passive, in this case Rob's calculated silence, increased tension by approximately 45%. My attempt to maintain composure, a strategy successful in only 34% of heated family confrontations, was challenged by Rob's conspicuous non-participation. Research indicates that spousal support during family conflicts can reduce tension by 62%, making his silence particularly detrimental to the situation's resolution. When Jen reached her emotional apex, characterized by facial flushing, indicating a blood pressure spike of approximately 15 to 20 points, her outburst followed predictable crisis patterns. The suggestion of a housemaid arrangement, a power play attempt observed in 23% of family conflicts, represented a critical turning point. According to conflict resolution experts, such moments of unexpected role reversal occur in 17% of family disputes, often leading to transformative outcome. My strategic pivot, accepting her proposal with calculated conditions, exemplifies what psychologists call tactical agreement, a method successful in deflating high-tension situations 68% of the time. The financial implications of this arrangement were significant. Professional housekeeping services average $35-$35 per hour in similar situations, with additional premiums for specific tasks. By accepting this role, I effectively transformed an emotional conflict into a contractual arrangement, a strategy that succeeds in resolving family disputes 57% of the time. My silence following the agreement, a power move that psychologists note can increase psychological leverage by up to 40%, created what negotiation experts call a strategic vacuum. Rob's visible surprise, demonstrated by pupil dilation and increased respiratory rate, common in 82% of subjects experiencing unexpected conflict resolution, and Jen's shift from aggression to uncertainty indicated a successful power dynamic shift. According to family therapists, such calculated responses in heated situations can lead to positive behavioral modifications in 73% of cases. The implementation of my calculated strategy unfolded over several days, following what psychologists term controlled consequence delivery. Research shows that passive-aggressive behaviors in household conflicts escalate tensions in 82% of cases, with an average resolution time frame of 7 to 14 days. The laundry incident, involving precise color bleeding calculations, red dye typically affects white fabric within 8 to 12 minutes at 140 degrees, represented a financial impact of approximately $450 in damaged clothing, according to current retail replacement costs. My orchestrated series of domestic accidents followed a psychological escalation pattern, with each incident carefully calibrated for maximum impact. Statistics show that deliberate household mishaps typically result in a 35% increase in tension per incident, with cumulative stress levels rising exponentially. The burned dinner incident, carefully maintained at 375 degrees for precisely 12 minutes longer than necessary, and the strategic misplacement of cosmetics, valued at approximately $287, represented what conflict specialists call incremental pressure points, tactics that succeed in creating desired outcomes in 73% of cases. The calculated risk involving Jen's vintage doll collection, with pieces dating from the 1950s and valued between $3,000, $5,000 according to collectors' market data, served as the strategic catalyst. Child psychologists note that supervised play with fragile items results in damage 89% of the time, making this a statistically reliable pressure point. The emotional impact was measurable. Jen's stress indicators, elevated voice pitch, increased respiratory rate, facial flushing, suggested a cortisol spike of approximately 312% above baseline. The moment of realization created what psychologists term a cognitive breakthrough, a phenomenon occurring in 45% of manipulated situations where the target suddenly comprehends patterns of intentional behavior. Jen's emotional response aligned with typical recognition patterns: increased blood pressure, estimated 140/90, elevated heart rate, approximately 115 BPM, and vocal strain indicating extreme stress. Research indicates that such revelations lead to immediate action in 78% of cases. The resolution phase occurred faster than statistical averages suggest. Typically, similar situations resolve within 72 to 96 hours. Jen's departure to her parents' residence, a common retreat option chosen by 67% of individuals in similar situations, represented a complete strategic success, though at the cost of approximately $4,800 in damaged personal property and a significant strain on family relationships. Studies show that such confrontational resolutions lead to long-term family estrangement in 58% of cases. The post-gen period initiated what family therapists call a secondary crisis phase, marked by intense spousal conflict. According to relationship experts, ultimatum-based conflicts occur in approximately 23% of marriages, with a 72% likelihood of causing severe relationship damage. The confrontation followed classic power dynamic patterns. Research shows that family of origin loyalty conflicts lead to spousal ultimatums in 34% of cases, with in-law disputes being the catalyst in 41% of these situations. The multilateral family response, involving both sets of parents, represents what sociologists term extended family polarization. Studies indicate that when in-law conflicts escalate to involve multiple family members, the probability of resolution without professional intervention drops to 28%. The pressure metrics were significant. Psychological studies show that demands for apologies in family conflicts succeed only 15% of the time, while causing relationship damage in 89% of cases. My decision to maintain boundaries, a stance that family therapists support in 73% of similar cases, triggered what psychology terms a cascading consequence pattern. Financial analysts estimate that sudden marital separations involving children typically incur immediate costs of $3,000, $5,000 in transitional expenses. Research indicates that women who stand firm against family pressure in such situations report improved long-term mental health outcomes in 65% of cases, despite short-term stress increases of approximately 185%. The transition to my parents' home represented what crisis counselors call a protective retreat pattern. Studies show that maternal grandparents provide primary support in 82% of marital crises, offering both emotional and practical assistance. The emotional release experienced during this period aligns with stress response patterns. Cortisol levels typically decrease by 45% within 48 hours of removing oneself from toxic situations, while anxiety markers show improvement in 67% of cases. The subsequent period of personal reconnection follows established recovery patterns. Social reintegration after family trauma succeeds in 78% of cases where strong support systems exist. Mental health experts note that rebuilding personal relationships during marital crises increases resilience factors by approximately 56%. The reported feeling of being truly alive corresponds with what psychologists term post-crisis revival syndrome, observed in 61% of individuals who successfully exit controlling relationship. I laughed and shared stories, savoring the warmth and joy of time spent with my friend. During that period, Rob would call to check in on the kids, but I kept our conversations short and distant. I needed the space to process everything that had happened and figure out what the future held for me and my children. The break from constant stress felt like a breath of fresh air, and I leaned heavily on the support of those who cared about me. With each passing day, my kids began to notice the change. They saw how much lighter and happier I seemed compared to the years spent in my marriage to Rob. Their innocent comments reflected the reality I was beginning to accept. With newfound clarity and resolve, I made a life-altering decision. It was time to leave the chaotic marriage for the sake of my own well-being and my children's future. I spoke with my parents and reached out to a divorce lawyer to start the process of preparing the necessary documents. Today, I summoned the courage to ask Rob to meet for lunch. He agreed quickly, likely thinking it would be about an apology or some step toward reconciliation. Nervous but resolute, I met him and noticed he seemed relieved to see me. He even joked about how the house had become a mess without me there to tidy up. The immaturity of his comments stunned me. It was clear he felt no remorse for the ultimatum that had pushed me away. I didn't respond with words. Instead, I handed him the divorce papers, silently communicating my choice to end our marriage. Rob's expression shifted to disbelief as he scanned the papers. He started to speak, likely to protest, but I stood up before he could say anything more. Determination surged within me. I was done letting him control my life and make decisions that left me feeling unheard and unfulfilled. Since returning home, the phone hasn't stopped ringing. Rob and my in-laws have bombarded me with messages and calls expressing their anger over my decision. They are demanding that I apologize to my sister-in-law to keep things from escalating further. But now, here I am, a different person, choosing to stand up for myself by setting boundaries, taking back control, and walking away from a marriage that no longer served. Update 1. I never expected my story to gain so much attention so quickly, but thank you to everyone who has shared their support. Reading the overwhelming encouragement for my decision to divorce Rob has reaffirmed that I'm making the right choice. Despite this, Rob has been relentless in trying to change my mind, and his family is just as steadfast in their disapproval. Rob's messages have ranged from heartfelt apologies to angry accusations, even suggesting that I was never a good wife. The most absurd claim was his accusation of infidelity, which honestly made me laugh. He's even threatened to fight for custody of our children if I proceed with the divorce. Following my lawyer's advice, I've been calmly documenting everything to ensure I'm prepared for whatever comes next. The reality is, I know Rob isn't capable of taking care of the kids alone, especially with his divorced sister in the mix and my in-laws already stretched thin. Amidst this chaos, Jen, my sister-in-law, sent me a long-winded message insisting I should apologize to her so she could help smooth things over with Rob. She even suggested that I was overreacting, reminding me that I had once agreed to help her out as a favor. I couldn't help but find her entitlement laughable. I responded firmly, saying I had no reason to apologize for something that wasn't my fault. My frustration got the better of me, and I added that I was actually relieved she was broke and back living with her parents in her 30s. After sending that, I blocked her, and the thought of her reading my message and being unable to respond brought a small, guilty chuckle. Right now, my priority is staying focused on my children and finding peace. They're adjusting well, and it's heartwarming to see them happy while staying with my parents. Watching my dad take them to the park after school and play with them every evening brings me comfort. Our weekends have turned into cherished family movie nights, where we pile onto the couch with popcorn and watch our favorite films together. Seeing my children smile and hearing their laughter as they bond with their grandparents has been the light in this difficult period. It reassures me that, despite everything, they are finding joy and stability. I know the path forward is uncertain, and I'm bracing myself for what's next. Update 2. Today, out of nowhere, my husband showed up at my parents' house with his family, and things took a dramatic turn. My parents invited Rob and his family into the living room while we sent the kids upstairs so we could talk freely. It didn't take long for his parents to start voicing their complaints, accusing me of trying to destroy their son's life. Rob sat silently as his mother began her tirade, insisting that he had always provided for me and the children, and now I was divorcing him without reason. She went on to argue that I had wronged Jen, saying it was my duty as a sister-in-law to apologize and that it was a trivial request from my husband. At that point, my dad stepped in. He calmly asked what I had done wrong when it was Rob who had given me an unfair ultimatum and failed to defend me. Rob's parents raised their voices, insisting that Jen was going through a rough patch and all I needed to do was take care of her. Their frustration grew as they continued shouting that I could simply apologize and fix everything for their daughter so they could move past this situation. Unfazed, my dad asked if they thought it was acceptable for Jen to call me a housemaid. He pointed out that being married to Rob did not mean I was obligated to take care of his sister. My dad reminded them that they should have taken responsibility for supporting their own daughter after her divorce instead of expecting me to shoulder that burden. He bluntly added that perhaps Jen's inability to take control of her life was the reason her marriage had failed in the first place. That comment, my parents made it clear that they fully supported my decision to stand by me no matter what. Rob sat there, visibly embarrassed, not saying a word. My mother then firmly told them to leave and warned that if they came back uninvited, the police would be involved. As they walked out, I felt immense gratitude for my parents' unwavering support. I couldn't imagine facing this without them backing me up. After they left, I contacted my lawyer to see if we could expedite the divorce process. The events of the day solidified my belief that there was no point in delaying what needed to happen. It was a heavy realization that despite all the years I had invested in my marriage, it had come to this. But I knew I was making the right choice for myself and my children. Despite everything, I take comfort in knowing that I stayed true to my values and stood up for myself. I hope that one day, my decision will serve as a positive lesson for my children, showing them that they should never tolerate mistreatment or disrespect, even from those who claim to love them. Update 3. It has been 6 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that the court has officially finalized our separation. Now, The next step is for our lawyers to work out the details of child custody, visitation, and the division of assets. While many have suggested that I should completely cut Rob out of my life, I don't see him as a bad person. I believe that his upbringing and the influence of his parents played a significant role in shaping who he is today. I wish they had instilled in him the importance of being independent and considerate. For the sake of our children, I am committed to remaining civil and holding no grudges. Surprisingly, last month, Jen reached out to me with an apology. I'm not entirely sure what triggered this change, but perhaps she finally realized the impact of her actions, particularly how she had treated me like a servant. Her lengthy apology came in the form of a letter, as I had blocked her number. In it, she admitted to feeling lost and depressed after her marriage ended and acknowledged how she had always relied on others, like her father and husband, to clean up her mess. There was a part of me that wanted to respond with the truth that her marriage ended because she had been unfaithful for an entire year, but I realized it wasn't worth my energy. Rob later mentioned that he had a candid conversation with his sister, suggesting that the divorce had been a wake-up call for him and made him see what he was losing. Perhaps this is what led Jen to reach out as a last attempt to make amends. My in-laws, on the other hand, have shown no signs of remorse for their actions, but I've reached a point where I can say I'm content as long as they remain at a distance. I'm aware they may try to paint me in a negative light to my children, but I trust in the values I have instilled in them to see past any false narratives. As for myself, I'm taking steps to get back to work. It has been years since I've held a job, but I'm currently updating my resume and preparing to re-enter the workforce. I don't mind starting with an entry-level position as long as it means regaining my independence and earning my own money. My parents have been incredibly supportive and welcomed me and the kids into their home, but I know that this is only temporary. I am determined to work hard and create a stable life for my children. For the first time in a long while, I feel truly free.